John, are you okay with the invocation?
So,
Okay.
three girls from.
I don't know. Okay, welcome. Would we all please stand for the invocation, and we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd like to ask Commissioner Barr to provide us with an invocation.
May we bow in an attitude of prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day in Washington County. Thank you for the opportunity to serve and to assist others. Lord, we have a special prayer request here this afternoon. Pray, keeping our thoughts and our prayers and lift before you Sharon Hart, who's going in for a very serious heart operation this Friday. So we just lift the Hart family and particularly Sharon and just ask for the direction and expertise of those that are working on Mrs. Hart. Direct us and guide us here today. Lord, may everything we do and say honor and pleases you. It's in your name we pray.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to call the May 30th, 2018 Washington County Board of County Commissioners meeting to order. With that, I'd like to move down to the emergency-related contracts in South County. Mr. Hobbs.
While Scott comes up, President Baker, Commissioners, I'd like to add a few things that have happened since last Thursday's public meeting, which was very productive, I think, in the opinions of those that attended, and for staff certainly listening to the concerns of the South County. So at the public meeting, we heard not only but predominantly about National Park Service, Sandy Hook Road, U.S. Postal Service, and getting roads open. On Friday, we made contact with Senator Van Hollen's office, Senator Cardin's office, Congressman Delaney's office, and those were largely in regard to the National Park Service, Sandy Hook, and U.S. Postal Service with the help of staff. Saturday and Sunday, we monitored for storm events. Charlie Summers provided regular storm events to the director and me. Fortunately, it did not hit there. However, it did have some damage in Clear Spring. South County, like I said, none. Special operations on Sunday, I believe, Sunday evening was sent to Ellicott City. So while South County did not get the flooding that may have been anticipated, it was a busy weekend for emergency services and for some staff. Tuesday, we were notified by Sonny Holding of Congressman Delaney's office that the U.S. Postal Service will be restored, at least in part, from the Brunswick office to some South County residents. So hopefully today, if they haven't already, there is U.S. Postal Service being restored. We will be installing VMS. We had this discussion yesterday about installing VMS, updating our website, researching Acro Bridges, which is a temporary bridge, and utilizing sewer camera and vac truck on Chestnut Grove to try to expedite the clearing of that project, in addition to what Scott's going to bring to you today. And of course, today being the established contracts, and at the very end of this meeting, if all goes according to plan, I'd like to request that the commissioners consider lifting the state of emergency declaration after these contracts are considered and so forth. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just like to share with you, I mentioned emergency-related contracts, and that relates to the on-call contracts, again, in the emergency conditions we're in now. So there's a contract that we have reviewed through the state. It's Maryland Transportation Authority, awarded in November 21st, 2016. It's on-call drainage and stormwater remediation. We have two-phase program or project at Chestnut Grove Road that we would like to continue with. Phase one with the dewatering. So that's referenced in the agenda request form as our dewatering effort. There's on-call services to get that work done. That's still massive amounts of water that are in behind the culvert. We need to get that cleared so then we can then expedite a project that we'd like to competitively bid. And the second part of this, again, at Chestnut Grove, is that we move forward with this contract to go to 2 weeks for the bid period versus the 30 days. That's the county typical procurement minimum days procedures. So those are the two aspects at Chestnut Grove Road that we would like to move forward with. The contract for the on-call drainage is contract MR 3007, and it has unit rates per day, per hour. So they've tracked currently for phase one in the dewatering services. They're putting together the numbers, but we're in the range of around $50,000 to do so. So it's right at the limit of over $50,000 coming to the board. I wanted to share that with you. We'd like to be able to proceed, still update the board with the information that we have with the costs involved, but we felt that was the most cost-effective, expeditious way to move forward with the contract. The second part, again, phase two, is to actually put in larger culverts that in the future will take more of the flow through the structure and limit that issue in the future. So part of our project is to move forward with that with, again, a competitive bid within 2 weeks and move forward with that. So when it comes to my recommended motion, it's to move to proceed with the emergency-related contracts in those regards to the water under the on-call contract, and then for phase one, and then for phase two to come in with a expedited bid, a 2-week bid period. So that's my request for the motion, my recommended motion.
Okay, any questions, commissioners? If none, I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion a second for the approval. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank
Okay.
you, Scott.
And just briefly beyond that, just wanted to share an update on all the structures. Part of this contract, Harpers Ferry Road is being redone. So again, the maintenance contract on that, that's why I said related contract with Chestnut Grove and Harpers Ferry. Garrett's Mill Road was one that's been talked about with the bridge and the long time frame for opening that bridge. We've actually been in contact with Allegheny County, who put together a project with an accelerated bridge foundation work using large concrete blocks for foundation. And they shared with us that it moved up their construction time frame immensely. So we're working with that on a design build contract to expedite the 12 plus months on the contract. So I just wanted to update you on that we're moving forward, doing everything we can to open these roads as soon as we can when it comes to the large culverts and bridges. And with Hoffmaster Road, we have a contract in the future moving forward with that. It's part of a CIP project. We're going to open the roads there. Some work needs to be done at the lower portion of Harpers Ferry Road and Hoffmaster Road. Once that's done, those roads will be open. We're looking to start with that on-call contract next week with that work. So part of that recommendation and work that I discussed on that on-call contract was that Harpers Ferry work, and that would be started next week along with the Chestnut Grove Road area. With that, if there's any other questions.
Okay,
And
thank you.
just so the commissioners are aware that Andrew Eshelman, who is here, has been dedicated to the project down there and the projects that require getting the roads back open. So his services are much appreciated, and I know that Scott's office has put on the back burner some things that were already in the CIP so that these projects could be addressed on an immediate basis. So I'd like to thank Andrew, too, for being involved in this, and Scott for allowing us to use Andrew so immediately at a moment's notice to get things moving very quickly.
Sure. Yep, and we'll be updating daily, keeping the website open with all the latest on our website with the maps and the description of the projects moving on with the timelines involved.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hobbs. Okay, solid waste budget discussion. Mr. Mason, Ms. Greaves, how are you two this afternoon?
Wonderful. How are you?
Good, good.
Good. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer, here with Dave Mason, Deputy Director of Solid Waste. Thank you for having us back to discuss further the Solid Waste Fund. I believe you have an attachment to your ARF, which I'm going to walk through. First, some of the history of the Solid Waste Fund, and then we'll be presenting you with some options for consideration. First off, I would like to say that the Solid Waste Fund is classified as an enterprise fund. Enterprise funds operate much like private sector businesses. So the Solid Waste Fund is primarily self-supported, except for an annual transfer from the general fund, which is to cover costs associated with the closed landfill sites. The first graph that you see on the screen or in your documents is a graph of the fee history, which you can see there were several increases between 2003 and 2007. However, after 2007, there was a 5-year gap, with the next increase being in 2012. Those increases that you see are simply averages of both the trash and permit increases. If you would like a breakdown of that, I can certainly get that for you, but this was just for demonstration purposes. When fees do not cover expenditures, where does the money come from to balance the budget? It comes from the general fund, which is, this is the wrong graph. This is the right graph. On the general fund, you'll see is the area in red or orange. The solid waste fund balance, which is blue. And then in 2016, you see, it looks gray to me on the screen, but it's green on my chart, and it may be green in your handout, and that is operating transfer from the capital fund. So these are areas that, these are where funds come from that we use to balance the budget. In FY19, the general fund transfer did increase by $488,000 for a total of $961,000. And the operating reserves did increase by $175,000 to a total of $359,000. So as you can see, in years 2018 included balancing with fund balance. Only 2 other years did this happen, which were 2014 and 2015. So staff has already increased both general fund transfer and the use of reserves. The following chart that you see is for closure and post-closure costs and some debt service history. In the graph, the county has had a history of setting aside funds for closure, post-closure. That is in the orange color that you see. GASB 18 does require a reserve to be set aside for these closure, post-closure care costs. This is because the county is required to put a cap or final cover on the closed landfill, but also provide for maintenance and monitoring functions at the site for up to 30 years after closure. These sites that are closed are still dynamic and do require routine maintenance, but also control of some events such as landfill flares and even leachate outbreaks. As you can see, there were no closure, post-closure costs set aside for years 2015 through 2018, with some of that being restored in 2019, as we feel is necessary. Okay, make sure I'm on the, yep. Okay, so what the chart in front of you shows is a history of the solid waste fund balance and cash reserves balances. The blue line is the fund balance and the red line is the cash reserves balance. Fund balance represents assets minus your liabilities. And as the commissioners are aware, many of our county assets that we have here are roads, bridges, treatment plants, buildings. We cannot simply sell these assets and reap the benefits because of our duty to provide services. The fund balance is used as a measure of overall health. The cash reserves are cash available to use. We do use this cash, we have in the past, and we hope to restore in the future. Policy does state that we maintain 25% of our operating reserves as cash. which for FY17 was our operating and maintenance expense was around $3.9 million, which represents about $967,000 in cash reserves that we would like to maintain. So you can see just in this graph that we have used our cash reserves over the past several years, and even in 2016 went below our reserve requirement. We see it coming up a little bit in 17, and I have a further graph to show you a prediction for the future. Before we get to that, debt service was brought up at our last meeting. In FY19, the debt service did increase by $562,000. We do expect debt service to have a reduction in 2020 and 2021. However, we do expect some slight increases then again in 22 and 23. It's not until 2024 that we really see a large reduction in our debt service. However, that's 6 years away still. As the FY20 debt reduces, so should the general fund contribution back to a normal level. So as I spoke about before, we did increase the general fund contribution to kind of help pay for the spike in debt service this year, but we hope to reduce that back down to the level in which it was in FY18. So we're looking at that for FY20, which was around $488,000. Here is a chart for the cash flow projection. The red line represents what our cash reserve requirement should be per our policy, and it's right under $1 million that you can see there on that graph. So as we can see, this is history and a projection, and the assumptions that were used to project this are lower debt service, normal general fund contribution after 2019, and an increase in fees. So as you can see, the cash flow issue for this fund does precede the debt service savings that we will realize down the road. The FY17 cash balance again is at $972,000, and our cash requirement is $967,000, which is only a difference of about $5,000. So that's to provide some history. I'm going to turn things over to Dave to discuss the options that we have for consideration. And please keep in mind, as we do discuss these options, nothing is sacred about the way these are laid out. If there is something that the commissioners feel strongly about, that they would like to change or try to reduce a certain fee, but they wouldn't mind increasing a different fee, we are certainly open to those types of comments.
Yeah, thank you, sir. All right, so in your packet, you have 5 different options that we have considered for your pleasure. Option 1, options 1 through 4, all 4 of these, or 1 through 3 include the $250,000 loan that was given to GKG being paid back and rolled back into the operating budget. Then the remaining money was made up with a combination of either raising tipping fees or permit fees. So option 1, we can see that we just split the yard waste permit to an individual and an add-on permit. $20 for an add-on and $25 for an individual permit. And then as far as the tipping fees in option 1, raising refuse to $55 a ton, and then creating the fees for dirt recycling and carcasses was reduced to $100 per ton, opposed to $200 that was proposed previously. And that gets us a combination of fees and the loan brings us to a total of $455,500. Option 2.
When do you want
Yes.
questions?
You can
Whenever you have them, we'll answer them.
Okay, your carcass, it was
We had originally
proposing
proposed
200.
Yes.
And
Per
what
ton.
did you say
Per ton.
per ton? And what did you say the private agencies were charging? Or
Well, there's a crematorium in Boonesboro was around $140 a ton. I believe the protein, I can't remember the name of it right now. Valley Protein, it was in the neighborhood of $300 or $400 a ton. So, you know, we had suggested 200 ton, not to try to take away business from Boonesboro, but, you know, still be able to cover our expenses. That's where the $200 per ton came from originally. But here we just were reducing fees to try to meet that, you know, $450,000 plus or minus. Any more questions, option one? Okay, option two, this is with a $250,000 loan paid back and just increasing the tipping fees that you see in front of you, the refuse creating the dirt recycling and carcasses fee, and then just doing a flat tire rate of $200 per ton, which reflects exactly what we're paying to get rid of the tires, so we're breaking even on the tires at this point. And that gives us about $440,000.
So that option includes no permit fee increases.
Option three is the permit fee changes. As you see, the regular permit goes up to $135, which adjusts half price. Splitting out the yard waste permit into individual and add-on, as discussed before. This time it's $20 for an add-on and $50 for individual. And then this option increases the minimum scale charge of $10 to $15, which gives us roughly $130,000 in revenue for the course of the year. So all that combination, you know, gets us to about $445,000.
And on the minimum $15 charge,
Yes.
so it's a minimum $15 up to what weight?
Oh, it'd probably be 350 to 400 pounds. I haven't calculated it yet, but it would be in that area. Well, I think the $10 covers 280, so we'd probably be just over 300, 350. Any questions on that option? Okay, option four, we're raising certain tipping fees, splitting out the yard waste permit, again, like we discussed previously, and then holding off on hiring a new employee, which saves us $77,000 and some change. So this option also gets us in that $445,000 range. So option five.
So you'd be holding off on hiring the employee for how long?
I guess until we see how our revenues start to come in, and you know, we could base it off of whether we're having a good year revenues. If our revenues are up and we can afford it, we'd probably go ahead and see about hiring, but it may be put off.
Even till next year or the following year, depending.
Yes.
How long have they been without that employee?
Two employees, hasn't it?
Well, it's been 2 employees for a while. They retired and were never rehired, and then they were taken off the books a couple years ago. It's probably been 5 or 6 years since they've had a 7th operator. Yeah. But again, back 6, 7 years ago, we probably didn't need that 7th one because our tonnage was low. Now our tonnage is creeping back up. We need that additional employee just to keep up with day-to-day operations. That's why we're asking for it this year. Okay.
I'll kind of interject here. This 5th option is here for your review. Staff does not think that this is probably going to be a very popular option, but we just wanted to provide it so that you could see without the fee increases of any kind or the use of the $250,000, what it might mean for operations.
Right. And the note on this one is, since we're dealing with cutting back hours and we have solid waste employees are a union, it would have to be approved by the union before it could be accepted. So you can see we're reducing employee hours, trying to reduce the overtime. Operators now get 8.8 hours a day. Way clerks get 9 hours per day, so they would all be cut back to 8.5 hours per day. We would reduce transfer stations to 4-day week operations instead of 5.
I don't know if we have to go through all of
Okay.
it, but just
Yeah, you can
it's
and
there.
eliminate some programs, some of the recycling programs. and cuts out some of the line item budgets, cuts down some of the line item budgets. So those are the 5 options for your consideration.
But we are here, and we're happy to discuss any of these options further. If there's something on one of the options that you're okay with, but maybe there's 1 or 2 items that you'd like to see change, we would appreciate any comments that you would have for us.
So if someone comes to the landfill, we eliminate electronics recycling.
Yes.
We just tell them go home. Tell them we don't take it.
Well, see, electronics recycling is not mandated by the state, unlike other recycling programs, so we can technically just landfill that. That'd be just charge of $52.
If we eliminate that, we save $63,000.
Yes, that's what we pay to get to have them recycled.
I understand it. I'm just saying, I'm looking at the numbers and I'm saying that that's $63,000.
Yes, it costs us roughly, say 6,000, just to round off numbers, a truckload to get rid of our recyclables. We pay Unicor 20 cents a pound. We renewed that contract a few months ago. And then we also pay a shipping fee of, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it's roughly $600. So yeah, we pay per the ton to get rid of recyclables or the electronics. And these are budgeted numbers. This is what we have budgeted for this year.
I'm surprised by that number.
I would like to see an option, and I think it's presented in a couple different scenarios here, where the sticker permit fee, I think probably would it be fair or accurate to say that most of the people that use the landfill on a regular basis are the people that bring in bag trash from their home?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yes.
I would be in favor of a proposal that would keep that fee constant, what it is now, $130, not seeing that increase by $10.
Okay.
And with the other fees, I would be flexible and would see what my fellow commissioners would like to see done. Certainly with some of these things, if it's costing us more money to dispose of an electronic, a tire, what have you, than what we charge the citizen to bring that, I mean, I think we would want to at least break even. We don't need to make profits off of it, but I don't think we want to
Right. I mean, we use
operate at a loss. That's
we use
not a good
trash
business model.
to kind of offset the recycling because we lose money on all recycling. The recycling program, general recycling, tires is hit or miss depending on what our rates are. So we kind of use the landfill and the tipping fees to offset the recycling to try to promote recycling versus landfilling trash. So yeah, some of the fees are set up that we know we're going to lose money on some of the recycling issues, but it's always been offset by permit sales or tipping fees of other kinds.
So based on our conversation last week, or our 3-2 vote, we're going back to that and only eliminating raising the 130. Everything else remain the same. Is that what you're saying?
I'd like for the mattress and Box Springs fees not to be.
I would.
I'm just, I understand. Is that what you're saying? Everything else, what was going to be changed before, everything else will remain the same except for that 130.
I would be happy with that.
What were you saying, sir?
I would not like to charge the $10, the fee. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice right now. The mattress in Box Springs, because I think they go in there being counted as weight right now.
Yes.
And they would be a $10 fee. I just hate to see that not encourage people to take use of the landfill. We find them everywhere, much like we had 3 truckloads of tires down in South County a month ago. So that's my way of trying to encourage people not to go on the side of the road and not raising the fees.
So you said mattresses and what were the
Box
other?
Springs.
So
We've eliminated that in these options.
There are some options with those items eliminated. Option 1 includes those items.
So I was going to ask Commissioner Klein, so if they satisfy your desire not to charge the $10 fee for mattresses in Box Springs, you're going to move forward with.
And with Wayne's suggestion, and is there any mobility with the tires, Rob, or anything that we can?
We've reduced the tires, I believe, in option 1 as well. Yes, yeah, we've reduced that significantly. So, and again, that's for the reason the same as the electronics, so you don't see them on the side of the road. That's not good for anything. So,
tire
reduce
rates-
those. We've also, if I may, for just a second, we've also are going to be looking at other costs for not this year. We can't get this all sorted out this year, but for the future budget years, is if we can do something with MDE on those tires and make tire cover out of them, or do something so we can use them more efficiently. Get a tire shredder so that when they're hauled back to wherever they go, or we can use them on the face of the landfill. So we're trying to do a number of things that you can't see immediately here that will help address some of these costs, and as well as leachate and so forth. Option 1 was intended to try to address what we heard as staff last week and arrive at a compromise solution. Again, it does include the assumption of the 250, but we can always revisit that, and we'll need to if that doesn't show up.
Okay, so the box springs mattresses, they're already incorporated as a weight charge only in the options, and then you have the
Option 1, right?
the permit fee remaining the same at $130. And also, if need be, if there's something here we're not discussing and we get an outcry on one of these areas, we can always come back and adjust it at a later time if we get an outcry from the public.
We're always receptive. I did want to point out for clarity, only the items, and I need your confirmation on this, only the items highlighted in blue are the adjustments. So only the adjustments are highlighted in blue. So if it's not highlighted in blue in that column under new proposed rate, it's the same as it has been.
Correct.
And option 1 includes the employee, the new employee.
It does.
Yes.
It includes the employee, it includes the $250,000 that would be assumed, and the reduction in those fees from originally proposed. So the increase is only reflected in the blue, as Mr. Slocum said.
Back to what I was saying, that there would be more items that were proposed to increase based on what Commissioner Kiefer, Commissioner Klein, and Commissioner Baker are saying.
You are correct. Further reductions are shown here on option 1.
So without going back and making option 6, can we make a motion to accept option 6, we'll call it, that will maintain the $130, not increase for mattresses and box springs, and
Tires. Yes, and then the balancing.
Is that all in option 1?
Just for clarification, that is in option 1. That's exactly what
is that was option?
That's
That's why that was my question now.
There
Was
weren't
anything
other
else increased that's not in blue?
decreases.
No, nothing else was increased.
Okay. So that is option 1.
So just to review, option 1 was only changing, we were dividing the yard permit into a individual permit, and if you bought a residential permit, it was a slightly lower price. If you bought the trash permit and the yard waste permit, slightly increased if it was on its own. And then we were just increasing refuge to $55 a ton and creating fees for dirt, recycling, and carcasses. That's,
Rob said that is option 1.
yes.
So that's your motion?
Mattresses are not included in option 1, or no new
I'm sorry,
fees
what-
for, no new mattress fees were included in option 1. Tires stay the same in option 1. We just tweaked those
Got it.
couple of items.
It sounds as if option 1 is a great compromise with what everyone wanted. So I would make a motion that we approve option 1, however it needs to be worded.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
And that motion would include also the resolution for adoption and modification of rules and regulations, landfill and convenience box fees and charges as presented in option 1. So that includes the entire thing.
Thank you.
That's why I need you. Okay, so option 1, we have a motion on the floor for option 1, including the resolution there, and so need a second. Second, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Very much.
5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. That was good dialogue, well worth coming back this week for. And I'd just like to thank Mr. Mason and staff for everything you've done to put this together, and thank you for putting up with us. Okay, now we need to move forward. We have to approve the operating and capital budgets. They need to be adopted. So what we'll do is we'll do the operating budget first. We'll do them one at a time.
What is being handed out right now is the latest general fund operating budget, the 10-year capital plan, and then the Citizens Guide to the Budget that was given out at the budget hearing.
This one has the sports center, capital plan. And this one has.
Okay, FY19 operating and capital budget adoption. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer, Kim Edlin, Director of Budget and Finance. The fiscal year 2019 budget process has been a collaborative effort where the Office of Budget and Finance has worked alongside departments, the administration, and of course the Board of County Commissioners. We've brought forth a budget that was prepared in line with sound financial management and provides for both existing services and new initiatives. The FY19 proposed budgets provide services to our citizens, maintain low debt levels, provide increased funding for education and public safety, and meet infrastructure needs. The FY19 proposed budget was balanced with no increase in property tax and income tax rates. The FY19 operating and capital budget, which includes all funds, amount to $328,752,270. The general fund budget is $229,639,310, and the capital improvement budget is $43,958,000 for FY19. As requested, we can start with the general fund operating budget, or rather all of our operating budgets, and request approval to move forward with those as presented.
Any questions, concerns from the commissioners?
The rec center, it's under the capital improvement.
Yes, sir.
And what category is that listed at?
It's under the general,
Government.
it's on page 3, I believe. Let me find it for you. Multi-purpose facility,
Yeah, it is. Is that
page 3 under general government.
Okay, the multi-purpose facility, is that the safety training center or is that the rec center?
That is the rec center. The public safety training center is under public safety, which are 2 categories down on the same page, police and EMS training facility. Page 2-3.
Mm-hmm. The 400,000 that's listed there, is that cash to be put in that fund or is that a projected?
There are 2 sources for that 400,000. 250,000 is POS funds, Project Open Space grant funds, and then the other 150,000 is general fund dollars.
So the adoption of operating and capital will include the adoption of the tax rate.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, I don't support the sports center being in the budget at all. That should be something that should be more detailed discussion, and I think the next Board of Commissioners ought to be talking about that. I haven't decided if I wanted to use POS money or not, and that 5 years of POS turns into 10 years. But it is my request that that not be in there and that be delayed for further discussions after this budget is approved into the next Board of Commissioners. Just my thought. We haven't talked about it. Our rec office is going to be moved down there and taken away from HCC. I'm hearing thoughts that we may make it a social venue. Will we be competing with HCC and other venues? But we haven't decided whether we're going to do little community sports centers, as several or one of the other commissioners had discussed. And that is my reasoning for that.
Okay, any other comments, questions from the commissioners on the multi-purpose facility?
Once again, it's a budgeted item that obviously can be readdressed come next year. It's not locked in, correct?
Well, anything can be addressed at any time.
It can be moved. I agree that I believe that one thing I dealt with for 16 years now is just like Commissioner Klein's saying, is that there's a need in these outlying areas like Hancock and Clear Spring for their own rec centers, for looking for space to buy. You look at just the YMCA right now and trying to get time out there just to go, period. It's nonstop. I know in Frederick County they have rec centers, and the scheduling is horrendous. You're lucky if you get in. Whereas if you have something of local flavor, size obviously appropriate for the population, where someone has to drive 5 or 10 minutes at the most to get to the rec center for their community, I think that 7.6 million or whatever you look at will go a whole lot farther if it's spread around the county versus.
In regards to Hancock and Clear Spring and Oregon, nothing's
right. And
central.
I think we need both to a certain degree, but I think the first thing I would hope is that we address our communities, municipalities, instead of one large facility.
Okay, any other comments, questions, commissioners?
So what we're saying is by leaving that in there, that doesn't lock us in, and no commissioner is committed to one large facility. That's my position.
Can I ask a question real quick?
There's
Go ahead.
Go ahead. There is a movement underway with the city of Hagerstown, which if this does move forward in some fashion, staff would reach out to the city to try to coordinate efforts and look at funding and compatibility with the cities as well. So just for clarification, we haven't done that because we didn't know which way this would go. So including the smaller municipalities, we would also look at the city of Hagerstown to attempt to work with them.
Just for clarification, I wanted to add that for this 10-year plan for the capital improvement plan, we are asking for just approval of the FY19 year only. Even though we have a 10-year plan, it is just a plan. Definitely changes from year to year. So just for clarification for staff, for the multi-purpose facility, are you suggesting that we simply remove the $400,000 from the year FY19 and keep the remaining in the out years?
I just would remove it entirely from the budget to the commissioners decide which direction we want to go. Small, large, local. For clarification, I'm just making sure that I'm not at this time in support of it, not and against it, but there's been no discussion about it. Why, what, where, who.
So if it's removed, there's approximately $150,000 of general fund dollars there.
For FY19, yes.
And I will say that, to answer you, Commissioner Klein, the reason that there hasn't been a great deal of study, for instance, the city of Hagerstown has initiated a study which I think is tens of thousands of dollars. Staff was trying to be frugal until it was
I'm not
approved.
So do a study. I'm just talking about our individual and public network or discussions in our.
Part of this 400,000 is 250 of POS funds. So where do we place those? if we remove it.
Well, they'll get back, that's another issue. We're gonna have all these small towns who have projects out in the future, most likely not gonna get any POS money then for years.
Annual POS program will be presented to the commissioners in the next, probably 2 weeks. I've got an option A, option B, depending on which way we go with this. So the money is allocated on both options, and it'll, go back into the park system, both municipality and county, if the money is, removed from the rec center.
And that will be presented,
Well, I'm waiting on the approval of the budget and this decision to be made to, send down the agenda.
so soon thereafter.
Yes, correctly.
Okay, and then the $150,000, what would our options be for that? How could we tie that into vestibules or something like that at the Board of Education for continued?
I would think that for a matter of expedient thinking, I would think the commissioners would want to attribute some of those funds to each one of the voices that you heard most largely at the budget hearing, which was Volunteer Fire and Rescue, which was Board of Education, and which was Senior Center, Commission on Aging.
All takers.
You certainly could. That's capital. This is
This
call
is
takers are operating. Yep. So not to go back to operating, but to go back to operating, if we do increase the number of call takers and go to 4, then the options that we are looking at as far as increasing the salaries and so forth for the existing call takers, giving a career path, incentivizing more flexibility for each of the call takers, et cetera, et cetera. If we add 2 call takers, that some of that budget money goes down. So we are dealing with a dynamic there. So we've looked at quality jobs over the quantity of jobs and are trying that approach to reduce turnover there. Director Hayes is here, and we have discussed those at length. But to answer the first question was $150,000 of local funds.
$150,000, all we're going to do is pull that out if we agree to removing that from the budget. So we'll pull that out. We have $150 that we have to decide where we're going to use it in the next, how soon do we have to do that?
You could
They would-
return it to the general fund too. Decide later.
Where's the senior set on here?
You don't have to remove it. I'm not sure. We haven't really fully discussed the sports center, and I'm not sure if I support using 5 years of POS at 50. It might be 5 years at less. Again, he's coming in with a report. We're deciding something before we have the information.
You want to leave it in?
I'd rather have it left out
And just to
until we
interject,
discuss.
you don't necessarily have to do anything with that 150. Keep in mind that we've already discussed giving the $1 million to the Board of Ed out of future project savings. So those are already funds that we don't have today. So of course, not having the 150 would reduce the amount of project savings that we would need to fund the vestibule requests for the Board of Ed.
We also, just to keep in mind, a fairly large topic brought to you first today was the cost for South County. And even if we do get reimbursement and meet the criteria between Frederick and our county for the state requirement, we'll certainly meet our local requirement of $500,000. Even if it is reimbursed, it's reimbursed at 75%. So that is still 25% of costs that will need to be erased to address those issues down there. That is something to keep in mind.
So if it stays in the budget line item as is, it could still be changed at a later date. And if more expedient priority comes up, we can adjust the money that way. If we take it out of the budget, what line item would we put it in? Is there a catch-all in the capital improvement budget?
There is a contingency for the general fund in the capital improvement budget that you could direct it to. It's right above the multipurpose facility, about 3 projects above. It says contingency general fund, $75,000. The $150,000 could go there for future discussion.
And is that only for 1 year? What happens with the outlying years?
Yeah, that's only for 1 year. And that's definitely where I would need direction from you if you want me to remove the project in its entirety, or you could leave it in there for further discussion next year and redirect those funds at a later time.
You're talking about leave it in the contingency.
I'm talking about moving the $150,000 for FY19, since that is the year that we're going to approve, to contingency general fund project, and then the dollars associated with years 2020 through 2023. There's 2 options. They could either remain there as a placeholder for further discussion, or they could be removed.
Just for clarification, I'm not opposed to a sports center, but we haven't had the lengthy discussion I think was necessary to determine if we'd like to do the municipality areas for small. We don't know our operating costs. We don't know a lot of things, and I believe that should be discussed first before we have it in as a line item. If you want to leave it in, that's fine, but let it be known I'm not against the sports center, but I would encourage some discussion, and workshops was the word I was trying to get out earlier, pardon me, that we begin having direction whether this should be something government should fund, or this is going to be a private partner relationship, or something that we can do to encourage private investment to build this. We haven't really examined all the options and the location. And as Mr. Maris, Commissioner Maris suggested, you're not going to make Hancock, Clear Spring, Dargan, or somebody happy with the location of one facility. So maybe the suggestion of little rec centers that supply the need for that community might work. But that goes back to my point. We've had no in-depth discussions about it. Not for or against. It's just my recommendation it be removed. But if not, that'd be up to 3 of you. But that we begin discussions in the near future on how we proceed with what type, if any. So I won't argue anymore after that.
Oh, you're arguing?
No, try not to.
I think the thing, all we need to do is decide what we're going to do with the money. He's going to bring a second option in with the POS funding. Take the $150,000 if you want to move it to the contingency, or we can earmark it we'll just earmark it at a later time if need be. And we just know we have some extra funds there that we can move around.
That's fine. Make that a motion. Yeah.
So I don't know if we need a motion. We're just going to.
I think you need a motion to approve the capital part of this budget, right?
Yes, please. And just to be clear, after the 150 is redirected in FY19, the rest of the budget, I need to know to leave it in or take it out. That's all.
So
For 2020 to 2023, do you want me to leave it in the plan or remove it? That's all. Just so I can get a final 10-year detail plan.
So it's just a plan, and then we can discuss it, or the next group of county commissioners can discuss it.
So we can move it to the contingency,
The 150.
the 150, and subsequent cash, not grants, cash, move to the contingency. And we can decide down the road.
Yes, you can. But then also what I want to make clear is the amounts in 2020, 21, 22, and 23 related to the multipurpose facility. Do they stay in that project line item, or are they removed?
Well, it's not.
But that could be where it says multipurpose facilities. You could always change the title if you have the money that is appropriated.
And we can change that next year.
That's exactly right.
Change
Or the
title.
next group of county commissioners
Change title.
can decide what they want to move.
I'd leave the money there, but I'm saying it could be multiple amount of
Minus
facilities.
the 400,000 marked for this year.
Yes, correct.
You understand?
Yes.
It will still take a vote to spend that money. on that
It will,
particular
because you're
project.
removing the FY19 budget, which is the one that is the most important, and then we can come back at a later date. These funds will sit there, but they can be changed.
I agree.
Okay, so with that discussion, and you know what to do with
Yes.
the money, so then we'll need a motion to move forward with the capital budget and the,
The operating budget.
so we're going to do both, the operating and capital budgets.
You can do them both together. Right?
The operating has the call takers, right?
Either way.
Operating has 2 call takers,
Okay.
and yes.
I just would like you to explain what, pardon me,
You want to vote, let's vote on the capital and get that out of
Sure.
the way.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Capital Board.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the capital budget adoption. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Okay, now we're on the operating. Okay, any questions, concerns? Jeff, you'd mentioned something about call takers on the operating.
Yeah, I favored 4, and now we've come up with a plan that, say that 2 will suffice with the, would you explain again for the public and us, so how we think the quantity, why we shouldn't need 4? And I'll tell you in advance why I'm just bringing it up today, with the Ellicott City flooding, man, I've been talking to other people locally from the Clear Spring stuff, that the 911 call takers are an essential link in public safety. And the things that, Director Hayes has come up with and what Rob has explained to me, would you go over there, review that to assure us that 2 would suffice what we need for the time being?
Right. So just for the record, I think all staff involved would prefer to have as many call takers as we can possibly have. So there is a desire to have 4 call takers. There's also a reality of budget. And budget requires that we determine as a call taker, which currently can start at a grade 8 and go only to a grade 9 and have no flexibility other than be at typically at a single seat. Is that more valuable, or is it more valuable to say and have 2 more, or is it more valuable to say we would like to introduce a career path for our call takers and something for longevity in that the quality of the job goes up, though we may have 2 less there for quantity. And given the turnover, it is a very stressful job. Given the turnover with Director Hayes and others, we have looked a number of times at what can we do. In fact, this board, when we've brought in the fact that we've lost another call taker time and time again, this board has looked around, including to me and to Director Hayes and to our Human Resource Director, and said, what is this that we can't get our handle on? Well, we took a good, strong look at it and trying to answer that question. And it seemed to be that you start at a grade 8, and even if you're there for 20 years, you're at a grade 9. We'd like to adopt a principle that says if you're there and you're willing to move around and take different responsibilities, you can get all the way up to a grade 11. So that's 2 grades difference. That's fairly considerable. We'd also like to move the supervisors up a grade or possibly 2. That means that when you look at the positions, it's more equitable across the board with other positions in the county, because the supervisor at 911 call taking center is obviously extremely important, has constant communication and complex authority going on. The call takers themselves, as they graduate up through the system, and they can go from a 911 taker to the emergency fire, to the sheriff's office, to the Hagerstown City Police Department, and then to a supervisor, we want to give those that are more flexible a higher grade. So to answer your question, I agree entirely. Ellicott City or South County or even Clear Spring, which happened this weekend, entirely necessarily. And my remarks to Dave were, I want to be in a position a year from now where he doesn't have to worry as much who's the next turnover going to be. It still can happen. I can't guarantee it won't. But who's the next turnover going to be? Who isn't going to be able to show up next? I want to be in a position where he and his supervisors have higher confidence that the position, the pay, and the grade is commensurate with the responsibility and the complexity of the job. That's where I want to be in a year, so that his trainers, his staff, his supervisors, all are rewarded for the job they're doing, rather than simply throw more positions at it.
One of the things was the number of hours they were being forced to meet with people calling in sick. It was 16, 18 hours.
18 hours.
That'd be eliminated.
That'll be eliminated.
So unless there's like 5 feet of snow on the ground, and that's the exception to the rule.
And that came up in South County. It actually came up when I was down at the Highway Department in Keedysville. We've got somebody here who's working over 12 hours. That's not policy. Well, that's because we had an event, an emergency event. So it's going to happen. There's no question.
So someone calls in sick 2 hours before shift. There'll be a way to prevent someone from staying 16 and 18 hours.
There will be. I'm going to tell you that Dave and I and his supervisors are going to need time to work that in. We'd also like to encourage the part-time staff that's waiting in the wings to be better compensated, so they're there, so that somebody doesn't have to be tapped on the shoulder and have to work an additional 6 hours. I mean, think if you've been in a room for 12 hours, you're tapped on the shoulder and said, well, somebody called in, can you work another 6? Or you will work another 6. That's a pretty tough call. That's not good. It's not fair to our citizens who need those services, the supervisors, Dave, or the call takers themselves. So 12 hours is a long shift, let alone 18.
Just add some comments there. Thank you for that. One of the things I've heard from the emergency responders, they depend on the 911 call takers. They are a link, both of them equally as important. So to the ones that are responding, they are saying they need good quality 911 call takers on that end. So that's what I've been hearing. What I want to ask now is, I think you addressed this, Mr. Hayes, Director Hayes. When do we review that we are getting results? It does take 6 months to train someone. What if in the meantime we do have turnover to someone moves? So do we have a plan in place to immediately address that so we're not short?
An immediate plan, we have to go through, first of all, we do have to go through the transition which was proposed to you, eliminating the 18-hour shifts, showing a graduated grade plan for a career path. So within the next 2 months, within the next 6 months, I'd like to say that we're going to have a plan adopted and in working order. It's going to take several months to get to a position, if not a year, quite frankly, to get to a position to say, okay, we feel there's stability now. But just like we've revisited now what's happening, we are going to revisit if it's not working. We will have to. We have no choice. I mean, these are life safety matters. And I think with Dave, his real world experience, with a number of others who have experience, Dale's here from BFRA. We've got a number of voices on both ends that we're listening to. It's a fairly complex operation, and it's going to take some time to change where we are today, which isn't, and I want to be really clear, 300,000 calls a year. Yeah, so 290,000 calls, 94,000 911 calls, and there are humans on both ends of that line. So there will be some human error, and we highly regret that human error. But the people that are out there are doing, they're doing a damn good job. We just need to reinforce it with more stability, more security, more career path, more respect for the position, and I think we're going to be in a better place.
And the reason why I question publicly like this, I'm one of the 3 commissioners that suggested we go to 4, but that was before this plan had been briefed. So I want to be able to go back to those people that I said to 4 that I've agreed to 2 based on what we've heard here today, that there will be a review if we see things not working out well, or if someone resigns or leaves, that we immediately act upon that. Because there is a 6 months training period to get someone put into place. And again, those people on the other end of the 911 call takers depend on them too, vice versa. So that's the reason of my concern.
Yeah. So, absolutely. Not to beat a dead horse here, but the fact that I want him to be
Based on this.
secure in that he's going to have people there, and he's going to have people in part-time as well, that if he needs them, he has them. I do not at all want to continue to move forward with the turnover rate in 911 we have. I also don't want you as commissioners to have to hear that there's this issue or that issue. We are certainly trying to address it, and if this doesn't address it, we will work. And now that we have some savings in the budget, maybe we'll have to throw additional expense at it. In addition to what we've talked about, not just the 18 hours, Dave's got a plan for the floor plan for a rest area and break area there that the staff will enjoy. And there's not just one silver bullet to this. It's going to take a number of different items to be addressed. There's no question. And some time.
Rob, so that I understand this correctly, so you have 6 call takers out there at a time? So you have,
Dave can correct me if I'm wrong, but I can put it in layman's terms, I
wanna
think.
know,
So
you have so many for the city.
And who they're dedicated to.
Yeah, that's the word I want.
you have two for the city of Hagerstown. You have two.
That's all they answer is Hagerstown calls.
Yes,
They don't move over to the fire and rescue side.
correct. That's how it is now.
Okay.
You have 2 for the sheriff's office. So those 2 serve the entire remainder of the county, about 100,000 people or over. Then you have 2 for fire and emergency services. Then you have 2 911, and then you have 2 supervisors. And then during what I think you call the power shift, which is the increased call volume time, you have 1 additional person. So during the power shift, you have 11 staff members there. During the non-power shift, you have 10 staff members there. And that's 10 staff members, 24/7, 365.
So with the change in the employment grades, someone that sits there for the city, that takes the city calls, they're going to be trained, and they're going to, if they have some downtime, they're going to be able to cross-train with one of the other.
There's cross-training to it with the city, if I understand correctly. With the city, we may not be able to say, hey, we're going to take the city, but that'll leave 8 other employees that we can be more flexible with. So we do have a joint meeting next week with the city of Hagerstown. That can come up, but at least for now, I think you'd agree, we'd keep the city probably where they are static, I would assume.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
I just appreciate staff's work on this. I know it's an important issue for everyone in the county because anyone could be impacted by this. And staff looked at it from a qualitative standpoint and a quantitative standpoint, adding 2 additional call takers, but also realizing that the job isn't an entry-level job. Those of us who spent time there, the calls you're taking, someone on the other end is having a heart attack, or they found their child had overdosed or something horrific. And it's a tough job. Those of you who have done it, you know better than I do. And so I like that we're looking at it from both angles. I do think in some time frame we need to be able to come back and say, assess, is it working how we had expected? So I would just like an update maybe from time to time as we're moving in the right direction, which I hope we will be.
We will certainly be doing that, and we have enough data we can provide back. So.
Okay, any other questions? If none, need a motion to move forward on the operation side of the budget along with the adoption.
Second.
Motion and second.
And can I just ask, this motion include the adoption of the property tax rate as proposed? I know we didn't necessarily include it in the last one, but it'd be okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Again, thank you all so much,
Thank you.
and thank you for putting up with us.
Not, what'd you say?
We're not an easy bunch.
It's fine. I would just like to say thank you too to my wonderful staff and of course all of the departments that worked really hard in a collaborative effort to bring this to a balanced budget. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to the county commissioners.
While Dave's still here, we didn't require a vote to go into a state of emergency, and I don't think we require one to exit.
I would suggest that we go ahead and do it. We did not require one. The annotated code says the executive officer, in this case, the president of the county commissioners, can do that. I think he can probably do that himself as well, but since the board's in session, you want to go ahead and make a motion to go ahead and move out of the state of emergency.
Jeff made the motion. Need a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. And did you say you had one other thing?
We have one. This is just one short item that it's time sensitive, so we talked to County Administrator Slocum.
Just take a second of your time. So I just want to let you know, as you know, Winter Street Elementary School is under contract for purchase with West End Baptist Church. Their proposed use is governed by a special exception under the City of Hagerstown zoning ordinance. And because the property is still owned by the county and it's titled by the county, the contract purchaser has asked the county to specifically authorize its filing of the application for special exemption with the city zoning. It is time sensitive as their application needs to be in by the 31st.
What does that actually
So I just need to send in writing that we are going to allow them to apply for the zoning, the special exemption.
We're just,
So they can use the property as they've always said they were going to
Right,
use it.
correct.
And the city of Hagerstown is requesting the county sign on to this because we're still a property owner.
we're the current owner. Yeah.
Property that county owns as of this moment, even though it's under contract to sale.
Right. It's part of the entire process.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank
5-0. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Motion to adjourn? Need a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0.